Welcome to a brand new series where we're going to have a special guest join me to make some predictions for the upcoming 2021 NHL season. We'll get into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned today, again, there's a premiere episode in a brand new series we're launching at Top Shelf Hockey. Similar to my previous series where we had a special guest join us. It was a game show type of feel where I put 3 questions to them. We're going to do that again, similar concept, except this time I'm asking the guest to make some predictions. And of course, I will be doing the same here as well. So today's predictions are going to be based on NHL players and who might outperform the other and who might get more points during the regular season. So my first guest today is going to be BNG Hockey. Of course, he's been on the channel a few times, big Bruins fan, so I did try to incorporate a little bit of a Bruins feel to today's video. So I've given him 3 sets of players, and I want to know his predictions on who will get the most points in the 2021 NHL season. Before I throw things over to BNG Hockey as well, I just want to take a second and congratulate him on hitting 1,000 YouTube subscribers, a big milestone. I know for a lot of people that's a really tough, long grind to hit to. I know I went through a lot of that myself. It seemed like it took forever, even though it probably went faster than it actually felt like. But he's certainly been grinding away for quite some time and recently hit 1,000. So obviously that's going to open up some new opportunities for his channel as well, and being able to have access to some additional tools like the community tab and have the option of placing ads and stuff. So it's going to certainly huge for the growth of his channel, and I just want to take a minute and congratulate him. Many of you last time when he was on the channel went over and subscribed, and certainly were a big part of helping him get there. So I hope you'll continue to do so and watch and support his channel. And if you didn't do so last time, I'm going to ask you again to go ahead and consider checking out his channel as well. I do think you'll be happy with the content. Now, first up, I gave him what I thought was a pretty tough question. Chicago Blackhawks star forward Patrick Kane and Bruins star forward Brad Marchand.
Hey guys, it's Dylan from BNG Hockey, where it's always black and gold. Thanks again to Mike for having me back on the channel. This is going to be a good one, so let's jump right into it with our first pair of players. Patrick Kane and Brad Marchand. This was by far the hardest pair for me to choose from. I love both these players. They're incredibly talented and big threats to put up huge point totals every year. Last season in 70 games, Kane had 33 goals, 51 assists, for a total of 84 points. Marchand in the same amount of games had 28 goals, 59 assists, for a total of 87 points. So even though Marchand beat him last year in points totals, I'm going to be going with Patrick Kane, and I'll tell you why. I think people are really underrating the Chicago Blackhawks coming into next year. I know they sent out the big, scary rebuild letter of doom, but I don't think it's going to be that bad, and I think their young core is going to come back better than ever next season. I expect guys like DeBrincat and Strome to have bounce-back years. I expect the 2 rookies they had last year to be even better coming into their sophomore year, guys like Kirby Dach and Dominic Kubalik. On the back end, they have a guy like Adam Boqvist, who you'd think you'd see a lot more of, and Keith and Taves are still playing at a pretty elite level despite their age. So even if the Blackhawks don't have a great season overall, Patrick Kane and all of these guys could have pretty good personal seasons. So I could see their points totals being through the roof, even if the Blackhawks don't have a winning record. Marchand, on the other hand, he could miss a little bit of time to start the season, and his line mate David Pastrnak is definitely going to be missing some time at the beginning of the year, so you have to factor in those line mates. Now, they do bring in a guy like Craig Smith. He's a pretty good 20-goal scorer. Maybe Jack Studnicka slides up and plays wing, but it's not David Pastrnak, and you have to factor that in. So if Marchand misses a little bit of time, and he's missing David Pastrnak on the other side, and the Bruins are a little banged up along the way, that's going to factor into a shortened season and Marchand's point totals. So all in all, I'm going to be going with Patrick Kane, but I could see either of these guys being up there in points totals, and they're both very good choices.
Now, I do agree with the majority of his analysis there. Obviously, these 2 players are very similar in their stats over the past few years. It's a tough question. Obviously, Marchand likely being out a little bit to start the season will certainly play a role. Of course, we can't predict if Kane will play all of the Hawks regular season games, if he'll miss any time or anything like that. But if all things being equal here, I as well am going to pick Patrick Kane. I do agree that the Hawks offense is probably going to be a little bit underrated. He's going to have a chance to play with some really solid players, whether it be the younger players like Kubalik and Dach, Jonathan Taves. They have some pretty solid players as well, including Strome and DeBrincat. Like, they have a good group of offensive players. And on the Bruins side of things, I think Marchand is really going to be missing Pastrnak, as BNG had to say as well. And I'm not sure that top six is really rounded out. You got Krejci and DeBrusk up there. I'm not sure how they're going to rejig the lines without Pastrnak being out of the lineup for a little bit. So I'm going to say that Patrick Kane will pull ahead here and have more points during the regular season. Although I do expect both of them to be very productive and play huge roles for their teams like they always do. Now, next up, I gave him a couple of sulky contenders in Patrice Bergeron of the Bruins and Sean Couturier of the Philadelphia Flyers.
Patrice Bergeron and Sean Couturier. These are two very similar two-way centermen, and looking at their stats last season, those are similar as well. In 61 games, Bergeron had 31 goals, 25 assists, for a total of 56 points. In 69 games, Couturier had 22 goals, 37 assists, for a total of 59 points. So he did have 3 more points than Bergeron, but he played 8 more games. I'm going to be going with Patrice Bergeron to have the better points totals next season. Now, even though I did just say in the Marchand segment that Marchand could miss a little bit of time and Pastrnak is going to miss some time, I still like the overall depth and the potential line mates that Bergeron will have on the Bruins better than that of Couturier's line mates on the Flyers. I realize that the Flyers are a good team. They have some excellent players, guys like Giroux, Voracek. I love what Konechny did last season. They have some nice younger forwards coming up, and on the back end, they have an absolute stud in Ivan Provorov, so it's no bash on the Flyers, but I just like what the Bruins have a little bit more, and I think that's going to help Bergeron. They do play a very similar role. They're both killing penalties, they both get power play time, they're both out there at the ends of games when there's empty nets and easy points, so it's going to be really close, and Bergeron has a bit more of an injury history. He is older, and I honestly don't think Couturier gets enough credit for how good he is and how similar he is to the Bergerons in the league. Guys like O'Reilly and Taves, he is right up there with those guys and definitely deserves more credit. But I am going to be going with Bergeron. I feel like he's a bit more of a threat when it comes to goals, and I like the team around him a little bit better.
Now, again, some good analysis there. I do have a little bit of a different opinion, though. I'm going to pick Sean Couturier to outperform Patrice Bergeron for the coming season. As much as Bergeron is one of the top players, and certainly one of my personal favorites, I get a lot of respect for him. He's been around the NHL a long time. Numerous Selke trophies. One of the top two-way players, very offensive, really clutch as well. When the Bruins need a big goal, it's been a lot of times Bergeron has been the guy to get it done for them. So certainly one of the top guys on my list as far as favorite players go. But I'm going to say Couturier will have a more offensive season than Bergeron this year. Obviously, having Pastrnak miss some time, Marchand maybe missing some time, we're going to see a big gap without that perfection line, and that's going to hurt Bergeron's production. He'll still find ways to be productive, of course, but not having those solid star line mates on a regular basis to start the year will have an impact. Where meanwhile in Philadelphia, I think they're going to have a more solid, ready, steady top six to go from the start of the season. So I think Sean Couturier is going to have a more offensive year. Again, like Bergeron, sometimes underrated when it comes to the offense, but Couturier has certainly worked his way up to be one of the more underrated players and somebody who's one of the stronger two-way centers around the NHL. Now, lastly here, I gave him a pair of defensemen, one with obviously a former Bruin and Torrey Krug, and we also have Alex Pietrangelo, former captain of the St. Louis Blues. Both these defensemen are star offensive defensemen, and of course, changed teams through free agency this year, so I want to know his thoughts on those pair of players.
Torrey Krug and Alex Pietrangelo. These are two guys who made a big move this offseason, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they do with their new teams. Last season, in 70 games, Pietrangelo had 16 goals, 36 assists, for a total of 52 points. Krug in 61 games had 9 goals, 40 assists, for a total of 49 points. I'm going to be going with Alex Pietrangelo here. I think he's the missing piece in Vegas' puzzle. They needed a solid right-shot defenseman, and he is a solid number 1 right-shot defenseman. Torrey Krug, on the other hand, I don't even know if he's the best defenseman on the St. Louis Blues. They have Parenko, they have Dunn, they have Falk. Are those guys going to be taking away from Krug's minutes? Krug is a bit of a defensive liability, so you can't always start him in his own end, and therefore or he's missing out on opportunities to get points. Pietrangelo will always be out there. He'll have a great defensive partner in Shea Theodore, who really took a big step forward in last year's playoffs. He has elite level forwards to pass to, guys like Mark Stone, Pacioretty, Marchand, William Karlsson. So I like Vegas overall as a whole, and that's why I think Pietrangelo has a better opportunity to get points. Now, the Blues are a very good team as well, and they have talented forwards up front for Krug to pass to. Krug can also score. One of my favorite plays last year from the Bruins was when Krug went end-to-end against the Minnesota Wild and scored that overtime winner. That was a really great play by a solid offensive defenseman. And Krug is a great player, but I don't know how well he's going to fit on that team, and it's going to be a lot different when he's passing to David Perron on the power play than David Pastrnak on the power play. So all in all, I think Pietrangelo has a better opportunity to put up more points.
Now again, this one's also a tough question in my opinion. I think Pietrangelo and Krug's stats could be extremely similar. I don't expect there to be a huge difference. I will be surprised if it's pretty drastic swing one way or another, that one really outperforms the other here. But I personally think Pietrangelo is going to have a really hard time living up to the money he's getting paid by the Golden Knights. That was an absolutely enormous contract, where Krug's contract in St. Louis is certainly, it's big money, but it's not to that level, and it's really going to be easier for him to live up to the standards that's expected with a $6.5 million deal for the St. Louis Blues. They're both going to be playing power play one time, in my opinion. Pietrangelo is going to have a pretty potent offense to work with, as will Krug. If you look at last year, both of these teams were very, very comparable offensively. There was only a couple goals difference throughout the regular season. Very similar statistically speaking, and really both teams are coming back this year with very, very similar rosters. We haven't seen a ton of moves out of either club when it comes to their offense, especially in their top six. Now in St. Louis, they are going to be missing some pieces, especially in a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko. But personally, between the Alex Steen retirement and Tarasenko being on long-term injury reserve, I really think we're going to see GM Doug Armstrong grow and bring in a top player, whether it be a Mike Hoffman or somebody, to really help solidify things. And Torrey Krug, I have no doubt, will get power play time on the first unit, and we'll have some great players to pass to, as will Pietrangelo. But I'm going to say that Torrey Krug ever so slightly edges out Petro in the points department. Not by a lot, though. I think it's going to be a close call. Both are going to play huge roles for their team. And I'm not really sure either one of them are going to have a hard time fitting in, but only time will tell. I'm going with Krug, though. So again, thanks again for BNG Hockey for coming on the channel. Again, it's always a pleasure, always lots of fun. Certainly appreciate your thoughts and analysis around the Bruins and the other players talked about here today. So of course, this is, like I said, the beginning of a new series here at Top Shelf Hockey. I do have other guests lined up that are going to be coming on to make other similar type predictions here in the coming days. So certainly stay tuned for those videos. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on these players as well. And if there's any other types of predictions or special guests that you'd like to see featured in this series, certainly leave a comment on that and let me know, and I will do my best. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.